Hello and welcome to another episode of The Irish Angle on the irishracing.com YouTube channel. I'm your host, Emma Nagle, and this week's show is brought to you by William Hill. Delighted to be joined by Johnny Ward and Paddy Flood, my two guests for today's episode. Johnny, first of all, how are you keeping?
Very well, Emma, thanks.
Good. Paddy, I suppose we'll kick straight into it. I thought the massive news story from the weekend was Stumptown's, I suppose, iconic victory in the Velka Pardubicka in the Czech Republic yesterday, the first ever Irish winner of the race. And what better men to do it, I suppose, than Keith Donoghue and Gavin Cromwell with Stumptown, obviously last year's cross-country winner at Cheltenham. Some spectacle to watch, wasn't it?
It was amazing. It's amazing that there's a race like that, in a part of the world that jump racing wouldn't be seen as a big show or spectacle, but it's probably one of the best races you can ever watch. It was amazing. I'll have to admit, after 3 or 4 fences, I thought, geez, yeah, he's enjoying this. Keith's enjoying it. Everything was smooth, but after they went out halfway around the circuit, I thought, no, he's absolutely no chance. He can't win from there. He was last at one stage, and Keith actually forced him back into the race. You would never do it, It was just a smashing ride, and if Keith had got one fence wrong or panicked at any stage, the horse would have gave up. He'd have pulled up, but he just kept it enough. I don't know what he done on him. He was brilliant. He was so good, and I mean, it's not lost on me that the hunting fields of Meath are a special place for young people coming up. We talk about racing schools and academies and all this crack, but a hunting field on a horse jumping ditches and hedges, it teaches you a fair bit about a horse and their limits and how to ride one and how to keep one interested. And I mean, Gavin Cromwell and Keith and all that family up around there, they're great hunting men. And it was great, because I didn't see it live now, and I didn't turn on Twitter, so I kind of waited till I knew it was over and then watched the rerun. But I was actually sitting with a friend of mine here. He knows nothing about horses at home. They'd done a charity walk, and he couldn't believe it. He just couldn't believe the jumps they were jumping, So it was brilliant.
Did you ever have a go at yourself? I know Keith has gone over a few times, and Patrick Mullins had to try it a few times as well.
No, never had a horse, never had any sort of anyone to go over to ride for, or never looked into it, but I might put it on a bucket list now. It looks good.
I don't know. Just watching it, Johnny, it's over the same trip as the Grand National, I think 4 mile 2, but I think quarter of the race is ran through ploughed fields, the fences, Paddy was just mentioning, he kind of made a bit of a mistake early on Stumptown at the Taxis. That's a fence that, it's like looking back at pictures of the Grand National in black and white years ago. It looks like the Grand National looked like a bit of pony club eventing or something. I don't know, what did you make of it, Johnny? Did you see the race?
Yeah, I missed it now. I was in Mallow yesterday. I was just coming out, and Harry Swan was alerting me to the fact that the race was off. He was watching on his phone as he was coming into the racetrack, and there seemed to be a fair bit of interest in it. And I know that there was plenty of chat around it in Mallow, and it is. I would think the exact same as Paddy in relation to Keith Donoghue, the likes of the Paul Carberrys from the Ward Union and the Hunts. The hunt kind of experience you gain by riding horses over these mad obstacles just for fun on a Sunday makes all the difference, really, for stickability and essentially not coming off horses when they make mistakes. I always felt that was a big asset that Paul Carberry had, and I imagine there are basically 2 sets of people in life: people who have ridden a racehorse and people who haven't. And I'm effectively, even though I've been on a horse, I'm basically in the latter of those 2 categories. And I'd say those who have ridden horses and have ridden in this race, or even just ridden in a hunt and gone with the horse and tackled obstacles that you don't even know what's in front of you, I'd say it's an incredible buzz. And then you make it into a race, which it's interesting you compare them to the Grand National, because in many ways this is kind of more what the Grand National should be. It should be a proper test, a real test of horse and jockey. The Grand National is a nothing race to me now, really. It doesn't stand for anything. It's just a glorified hurdle race, where they laud the fact that a horse hasn't fallen, as if that's some sort of triumph in a race, So this was actually special. And I actually think, I was just talking to Gavin Cromwell this morning on WhatsApp, I think he got a massive kick out of it as well, for all of the things he's won. And Ruby was talking about it on racing TV, like Royal Ascot, Winners' Arc weekend, Gold Cup, Champion Hurdle. He's won them all, but I think he got a massive kick out of this. And Keith is, key to some story, like it's not that long ago he was basically retiring, he was too heavy, and he had to work really, really hard. And I'd say if any jockey is coming up and is worried about his or her weight, Keith is the man to talk to, because there are ways around it that don't involve torturing yourself as well. It's about a physical regime and being able to get your gym work right, and probably looking after your diet as well. I think he's a gifted rider. I really do. I think sometimes you don't appreciate how good he is.
Yeah, him, and especially seeing him riding on those cross-country courses, he seems to do it better than anyone else. It's kind of poetry in motion. And yeah, I watched his press conference after the race, himself and Gavin, and he described it as the toughest race in the world. Comparing it to the national, I suppose, isn't even fair. I think it takes 9 to 10 minutes to complete it every year. I suppose, like for Gavin as well, like to become the first ever. I think a British trained runner won it about 30 years ago, but to become the first Irish trainer to ever win it as well. And fairness to the horse, like it takes some horse to go through like the obstacles and the ploughed fields. Like it's something completely different. Maybe the horses over there might be more conditioned to it, but I have to give total credit to horse jockey and trainer. It was some achievement, and well done to all involved. But we'll move on to some of the other big action from the weekend. A big Group 1 action in Newmark with Johnny. Precise added to her Group 1 tally in the Fillies Mile. She looks like another really exciting one for Ballydoyle. She's kind of improved from run to run. And I just thought it was brilliant. She kind of early on, maybe I thought she might have been in a little bit of trouble, maybe not travelling that well, but how wrong I was. She just cruised up there and looks like another real classic prospect for Ballydoyle next year.
Definitely, yeah, and one of the rare enough Star Spangled Banners that Aidan would have is some smart 2-year-olds by the side this year. But this was a compelling race because, like, composing initially was put in by initial price when the markets opened for this race after declaration time, which would be 2 days earlier. Composing was put in at 25-1, and it was 3-1 in the morning. And I kind of got word for composing that composing was fancied, but then come the off, all the money was for Precise, and it was very hard to know how it would work out between them, because when they clashed in the Nagle, Precise won at 11-2, and this is a race that Lake Victoria did the same last year when she wasn't the fancied one. Composing was Even's favourite. I can't remember the filly last year, but it's kind of the same story. And Composing, maybe there was a question mark about the headwind that day, but she seemed to be quite well fancied in Newmark, and she was a much shorter price, as I say, when they last met. And Precise absolutely bolted up. It's just the way that she went through the race and basically really enjoyed, I suppose, Christoph Soumillon's handling. But it's intriguing if she's getting like this mile comfortably and she's out of a Galileo bred mare. I wonder how far she'll get next year, because this was an explosive performance. You know, granted she was kind of beating horses right in the 90s, and maybe Composing's bubble has burst a bit at this stage, but I thought this was a special performance, really. And it's been really intriguing to see in the post-Galileo world the emphasis Aidan O'Brien has had to put on a scatter of new sires. You know, the late Wootton Bassett, obviously St. Mark's Basilica, and this year you see, you know, No Nay Never and Star Spangled Banner have an influence with the 2-year-olds as well. And some they get right, some they get wrong. But I thought it was a hell of a performance from her.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I suppose we were talking about Diamond Necklace last week. I thought she looks like a real Oaks filly, but I don't know, Precise showed serious speed. Started off over 6 as well, so you'd imagine she'll be going straight to Guineas next year. You wouldn't be shocked to see her being a real good 3-year-old as well. I thought the performance in the Dewhurst as well, Juwan, maybe a small bit of a shock, beating Justad and Zavateri. I just thought, look, just Dad, you can't ride him off after that run, though. He pulled so hard, and he actually tried really hard as well once he came off the bridle. I wouldn't be riding him off at all going into next year. But I suppose one of the major talking points from the weekend, moving on slightly, was from Cork yesterday. The first ever Academy hurdle run for 3-year-old National Hunt horses. It's a new initiative brought in by HRI, with, I think, the aim of getting National Hunt horses to the track earlier, I suppose, is how it's being advertised. It's been well supported in its first running, a full field, 3 reserves declared. So the trainers are supporting it. Paddy, what did you make of the initial Academy hurdle?
I'm kind of still a bit on the fence, Emma. I think there is something to it, but I think I'd nearly agree with Willie Mullins' quotes that it is to sell a horse. You know, is there any reason why you take a horse that miss and leave it a maiden bar you're going to sell it? You know, it has value to become a racehorse for somebody else with not a penalty but a prize money. I don't know. Like, I spent time in Australia where there's official trials And if we were going down a selling route for younger horses, could we have not gone that way and not be dipping into the prize money pot? Because from what I gather of it is the less runners in the field, the more money HRI have to stump up, obviously with entry fees and stuff like that. So I'd be worried come the next 6 races or 7 races that's left to see if there's a drop off. And then it's going to start costing a few quid. I know we spoke before that the winner was probably had a flat campaign and looked it, he was sharp. I suppose I'm just going to have to wait and see in it. I'm not trying to knock it, or I'm not overly too positive on it either. I'm kind of on the fence somewhere. I just wonder, did they look at having official trials that are, videotaped, sent to irishracing.com, you can review them, you can see horses, having a school around and there's no prize money at the end of it, but the jockey get paid and stuff like that, like Australia. But yeah, look, the race itself was fine. I suppose Gordon's horse was disappointing. He ran off the track. Very unusual for one of his. The winner was very professional. The 6 or 7 in behind weren't. You could see the jockeys were minding until they got to the last and got them home. But I just hope there's enough horses out there to fill the race for them going forward, and it's not the same horses all the time without the winner being in it,
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. Like, it's hard to judge, I suppose, a race series on one race. It'll be kind of the end of the year. I suppose we can make a judge our own opinions on the whole thing. Like you mentioned, the winner, I think cost 95,000 at Goff's Orby sale 2 years ago. So, I mean, that horse has probably been in training for 2 years. Like you said, probably originally being aimed at the flat, but didn't work out that way. Which isn't really what the initiative is being aimed at, but. Behind him, look, there was plenty of national hunt bred horses in the race as well. How it goes down the line will be interesting. Johnny, you were in Cork. What did you make of it? Was there much of a buzz, I suppose, from connections and race goers around the initial running?
Very much so, yeah. I was quite taken with how busy Mallow was yesterday for what was really an absolute run-of-the-mill card with a decent handicap chase, but smaller fields for the sort of classier races. And this race, which may have been, I'm not 100% sure on this, may have been the biggest entry for a national hunt race over the weekend, was something different. And I'm a bit like Paddy. I'm kind of on the fence on it, but when something is brought in with a positive intention and it's absolutely brought in for the right reasons, I think, to address serious issues with national hunt racing in terms of the dominance of a small number of horses come from the point-to-point sphere, and in this instance as well, French breds at the top of the game. This is something that is basically brought in to encourage younger horses in Ireland meeting the track earlier. And Richard Pugh's remarks on irishracing.com are worth reading if you want some perspective on it. I can see where Willie Mullins is coming from, but I actually kind of quite like the old school element of it, where you go into the betting ring yesterday and it's a little bit of intuition in terms of the pedigree and what the horse looks like, but it's kind of information really. Like how are you supposed to back a horse who's never run before in a maiden hurdle against 18 other horses or whatever who've never run before? So there's something a bit different about it, and I'd be alarmed by the direction Irish racing is going in terms of how dominant points 4-year-old maidens are. I don't really know if it's good for the game overall. And even I was remarking yesterday, Davy Fitzgerald had a winner. He hadn't had a winner in ages. And Davy Fitzgerald at one point had, say, the likes of Pearly Jack, Mr. Top Notch, and Operation Houdini. And it just seems fanciful that a trainer could have horses like that now, because the national hunt game is sewn up really by a small number of owners. That's my problem with it. I think the spirit has gone out of it in some respects. And I think in order to get it back, we need to have more of a spread of the riches around. And maybe this is a bit of a help. I see where Willie is coming from. But in general, I think this isn't a bad idea. And I found the race very interesting to watch. I don't know about you.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with all the points you're making. It's hard to make a judgment on it. Willie's comments, like Paddy said, it's kind of hard to see. I think it's fair enough to say that it is kind of aimed towards selling horses. Just the fact that the horses are still a maiden after winning one of these races is probably one of the rules of it that people might be questioning. Look, we'll judge it down the line. I suppose you mentioned about the tackling the issue of French horses dominating Irish racing. It's probably a bit ironic that a French bred horse won the initial running as well, but we'll see how it goes further down the line. It's good. I didn't actually look at the initial entries, but it's good to hear that it was a strong entry. It will kind of give you a bit of hope to see that, it'll be heavily supported down the line. And I'm sure there are plenty of trainers who, when this got announced or when they were consulted about it coming out, that they said, right, we'll get these horses ready, we'll try and get them there earlier, and hopefully we'll see that down the line. But it's something I suppose we'll watch and talk about as it goes on throughout the year. But moving on, some other news from the weekend. Big one from the point-to-point field. Winged Leader became the winning most ever point-to-pointer for David Christie, winning his 34th point-to-point over the weekend. 11-year-old now. He's been some serving for connections, Paddy.
Oh, isn't he a star? Maybe people watching this won't know much about him, but he just rocks up every Sunday or Saturday, and doesn't matter where it is. David Christie has just trained him to perfection, and 34 points. That is some going. It's amazing record. Barry O'Neill is predominantly his rider and just loves him. You can just see him. He'd go out blindfolded on him. He knows the horse so well, and the horse actually just loves racing. And like he's older now, and he's run a lot. And I listened to the interview with David Christie after it, and it's funny because he doesn't get any time off. It doesn't allow him a time off, because he said if he gets any weight too big, he can't get the weight off him. He has to train him harder. So it just keeps him at a certain, it's probably a bit like a long distance runner. They'll never get heavy. It's too hard to get off, because you're going to have to be too hard on your joints and stuff like that. That you don't just think of something like that. That's intuition from a seriously good trainer and a great horse, and he definitely deserves a mention here. And if anyone could go and have a look at a couple of his videos, he gets great reception when he comes back in every time, and he's not done yet. He'll win more.
Yeah, definitely. It's so much even, like, just given how strong, like, the point-to-point, like the open lightweight division, I suppose, in particular, has gotten in the point-to-points in the last few years. Like, and he's I suppose, a point-to-point horse true and true. Like, he's been there for year and year, and these kind of grade 1 horses coming off the track and coming up to face off against him. But yeah, he's just been brilliant. And I suppose anyone who's thinking about going point-to-pointing, maybe look up his entries, and he'll be one you can go and watch during the winter months. But moving on, just one other thing from the weekend that we were going to give a mention to, Johnny. A bit of drama in Naas yesterday ahead of the big handicap jockey switch situation for Ballydoyle. Wayne Lorden was booked to ride the eventual winner, Light as Air. Tried to get onto the reserve, I think, Saratoga. Didn't work out in the end, but worked out well for Wayne. He ended up winning the race, but there was a bit of commotion beforehand.
Yeah, this was an intriguing race. I have to say, I find these kind of stay-in handicaps in the flat where you throw in 3-year-olds against the older horses, they're really compelling races. This was sponsored by Colin White, who's been a staple of the bookmaking ring for years, and I'd say Colin would have been delighted with the little bit of drama in it, because it's a tricky one as a punter. Like the lad I went to the races with in Mallow yesterday, he would have backed Light as Air in the morning at, say, 3-1. And it's kind of different with bookmakers how they treat reserves. But like, if you back a horse and then a stablemate comes in who's 2-1 that the trainer is trying to switch the jockeys on, it wouldn't half knock your confidence. Like, and now when Saratoga ended up finishing 5th, which was an absolute sickener if you'd backed him each way, because he was kind of done in the closing stages for 4th after having made the running. But there was plenty of chat around him when he won in his handicap debut last time, and they obviously felt connections that he was going to have a great chance of following up under his penalty. But essentially, I want to laud the IHRB here, because there's no way you should be allowed switch Wayne Lorden with the original rider, Jack Cleary. Jack's had a great campaign, claims £5, very, very polished rider. I thought he's really grown with experience this year. But like, as a punter, if you've backed Light as Air based on Wayne Lorden riding, and then you get a £5 claimer jocked up purely because somebody else is available in the race, I don't feel that's fair at all for punters. And this was a real issue. This was a real good example of what to do with reserves in a race, because if you back Light as Air in the morning at 3s and then you don't get anything from the bookmaker to allow the fact that there's a reserve in the race who's a stablemate who's taken up a massive chunk of the market. It's not very fair. Now, if you were given the guaranteed odds, you were very happy, but I think the IHRB made the right call here. And the other point I'd like to make is just another sign of Wootton Bassett when he gets these horses who stay, Tennessee Stud, Al Rifa, horses like that. This horse looks smart. Like, he was winning off 96. I felt at Leopardstown he probably went for home a bit early on the day. Easy for me to say that, but I thought it was a really good run. He was also going from gate 21 here in a handicap, very difficult. Absolutely bolted up. So he could be a very smart stayer for the future. But I think the IHRB absolutely made the right point here, because sometimes we don't think enough about punters without whom the game wouldn't function at all in Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair enough, Paddy. Like, do you agree? Like, it's not a like for like change. If he was trying to change maybe Ryan Moore and Wayne Lorden would be a different story. Neither are claimers, but the rule's fair enough, Paddy, do you think? Yeah,
fair play to them for upholding the rule, because, you know, once Aidan O'Brien wants to do something, usually he gets to do it, but it's an IHRB rule, and Jack just isn't as good as Wayne yet. Not saying he won't be as good as Wayne, but he's got a £5 claim for a reason, and Wayne is a professional for a reason. He's had thousands of rides all over the world, and look, they probably kept the horse in the race and kept punters happy, so you have to look after the poor punters too, Johnny, don't we?
I think there was a similar situation down in Cork, or I don't know, was it a year or two ago, where I think it might have been Willie was trying to take, I don't know, was Paul Townend injured, and he was trying to put up, was it Sean Cleary Farrell or someone up on the horse, and they wouldn't even put him up because obviously the claim element again. But I think Willie actually might have withdrawn the horse on that day, so he didn't take it too well either when it happened to him. But I'll have to check the facts on that now, but just from memory. But moving on, kind of on the topic of jockeys, Toby Moore, Ryan Moore's 17-year-old son, made his debut in public in the saddle at Kempton during the week. Paddy, I thought you'd know that he's modelling himself off Ryan. He rode very well, I thought, and it's not too dissimilar to his father in the finish either.
Yeah, look, he's definitely one for the future, isn't he? Look, he didn't lick it off the road. You know, his dad is probably the greatest we've seen for a long time, and it's probably Christophe Soumillon's doing a smashing job in Coolmore at the minute. Christophe's this beautiful, quiet, get a horse to do everything as easy as possible, get it to change a leg when he wants, and you know, he mightn't, just in the finish, the last thing he wants is to be having to get down and gritty with a horse in the finish, whereas Ryan just looks for them to come off the bridle so he can just lift them. He's a powerhouse, you know. And Tisha, look, he's young at 17, so he's probably late enough getting there. He probably could have got a license at 16. But sure, look, even from grandfather and uncle, Jamie was a great rider over jumps, you know. He's got the pedigree anyways, and he did. He looked really good, and fair play to him, and best of luck to him in the future.
Yeah, what did I say? An ounce of breeding's worth a ton of feeding, and yeah, he's got 2 more rides booked this week so far, so he's definitely one to watch for anyone watching those up and coming apprentice riders. But moving on to some stuff, I suppose, further back in the week. Tattersall's Book won last week, and we saw some eye-watering figures, Johnny. I think the average price was around 322,000 guineas, but I suppose the big story again, the spending of Godolphin and Ammo Racing. I think Godolphin bought 23 horses to a total of 19.6 million. And Ammo Racing, they're not slowing down, 12 lots for 13.575 million. Kia is he's going forward. He's planned spending plenty of money. And yeah, it's I suppose if you're one of the people selling these horses, you're having a great time. But eye-watering money, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the point, Emma. Like you almost want to. There are people, and they're very sharp people out there, and who think, you know, could I get a horse to sell to these guys? And the very best looks to them, because like if you get people who have essentially the backing of like an oil state like the UAE behind them, you know, Sheikh Mohammed isn't short for a few bob, and then you have a Kia, however he made his money, coming in and spending utterly absurd money on horses. If you get the two of them into a sort of a battle, you're going to get these massive results. And I suppose in one way, at least the money is filtering down from very wealthy people to people who are not as wealthy. But like, I mean, there's no logic to this whatsoever. Like, let's be honest, like I'm sure the money that Sheikh Mohammed has invested in horse racing relative to what he's gotten back It's some way of wealth redistribution, I suppose, like when you think about it. But there's no logic to this at all. Like, and I thought one thing that really struck me over the weekend was the prize money for the birdcatcher in Ireland, how bad it is compared to where it was at. So when we look at these horses being sold for huge money, and you countenance the prize money situation in Ireland, like there's going to be a bracket now where horses are just like, you have to sell them really to other countries to make any sort of sense of it. Like, and that's going to result in our Premier handicaps coming back. And you already saw that this year with some of the Premier handicaps, including at Galway, not really filling anymore. And there's going to be a brain drain of horses of that particular bracket. But when these guys get involved, I don't think they're too worried about prize money. It's just, I guess it's egos, and they want the next superstar. But I mean, there's no logic whatsoever to spending, obviously.
Yeah, it's incredible. There was a few nice stories, I suppose, though, for some sellers and sale. One of them stuck out. There was a really good article in the TDN, I think it was, from Fergal Hogan, who pinhooked St. Mark's Basilica yearling for 135,000. I think he paid for him as a foal and got 800,000 back. He was. If anyone has a few minutes spare, I'd say read the article. It's brilliant and kind of one of those good stories you'd like to see coming from the sales. But yeah,
that's one thing, Emma, as well. I think, like, so the likes of that, like, if you, like, I'd have, the likes of Cormac Farrell, who, they bought that horse and they sold him. He was favourite for the Jew horse, and they sold him for 1.9 million or whatever, and they bought him for 90 and couldn't believe it. Like, it's a good thing in a way that money, the masses of millions and billions or whatever that these people have, that some of it filters down into the system. I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, probably not. You like to see people coming out with ordinary people, I suppose, getting a good touch out of it. But we'll move on from the sales. Plenty more to talk about. I suppose Ascot next weekend, a big one, the Champion Stakes. The big race of the weekend. I think we're confirmed now that Ombudsman and Delacroix will have round 3, and you can, I suppose, discount Calandigan, last year's second, who's likely to line up as well. I just saw earlier that Gosden's are going to supplement a pacemaker for Ombudsman to try and replicate that win in New York. Paddy, it's round 3, I suppose, for the big 2, the top of the market. I'm a fan of Delacroix now. I'm not sure will Ombudsman be able to make it, to get the one up, I suppose, here. But what are your thoughts?
I'm actually with Ombudsman, to be honest. I was delighted when I heard there was a pacemaker. Look, Delacroix, he's a smashing horse. Just wasn't blown away. I was blown away by his turn of foot, like everyone was in Leopardstown, to get to the front, but he didn't put them to bed now. He had that one kick, and like, I know Christoph got to the outside rail and it was a good ride in the end, but he was all out to get to that line. He must be working well at home and doing everything right, because I think Aidan probably, or somebody wanted to retire him anyway, because there was a little bit of a misunderstanding with quotes from maybe MV Magna or someone, but they give him one last hurrah here. I don't know, Gosden, he's had an up and down year, but he is a master trainer. A horse coming off a break as well. He's minded him. He's planned this race for a long time. Pacemaker in will really suit. I don't know. I think Gosden's 3 win the weekend. His 3 big horses. I'm actually going to have a few quid on the treble.
Not too bad. It looks like it might be a slightly easier Champions Day for punters as well, Johnny. Like the forecast at Ascot is probably going to be at least good ground. It won't be the bog that we normally see on Champions Day. But what do you make of, I suppose, the big race and anything else?
Yeah, it's kind of a concern for the jumping fraternity at the moment because the year has been so dry. Whereas I to be honest, I prefer this meet and run on, as much as you're expecting soft ground. I think that this clash again on nice ground will kind of make the meeting. Couldn't agree more with Paddy on the clash. I feel Ombudsman, when he was beaten by Delacroix at Sandown, as much as Delacroix wasn't necessarily advantaged by the way the race was run, I thought that was a complete mess by connections of Ombudsman, really, which they rectified obviously then at York. Now that day, Burghcastle, it was a bit of a strange pace-making sort of race in a way, but Ombudsman destroyed Delacroix. Couldn't agree more with Paddy what he says about Leopardstown, and even, I don't know, it wasn't a vintage Champion Stakes, and he got a great ride. He kicked to the front, showed a turn of foot, but the bookmakers are kind of quite heavily favouring Ombudsman in the return. I don't see any reason for that not to be the case. It's an interesting one with Delacroix for Coolmore because like it's actually completely insane when you think about the stupid like ban that they had basically between Coolmore and Godolphin doing any deals together, when all of these pedigrees, like now you have Dubawi out of Teppen, who's going to be, he's probably going to be a pretty big sire for Coolmore because he's such an outcross Galileo bred mares, and this couldn't have happened like if that standoff continued, that sort of nonsense that was going on for a few years. So I can kind of see why they might be keen to retire him, and Aidan has already talked up his sire potential, but with the pedigree he has and all that, he'd be massive for them. But what a way to end the season! Like, this is the best of the best. It's cracking stuff, and it'll be run on nice ground as well. And we've a hell of a race as well here. I don't know what Paddy makes of it, but I might get his view on it while he's there. The apprentice race in Ireland is going to be something else actually towards the end of the season. I think as much as we've talked up the jockey's title, I didn't realise how close it was at the apprentice race, and I'd love to see the likes of Wesley Joyce win it, but it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see Wesley win it, Johnny. For what he's been through, you know, I know Wesley well from going through the school, and he's always been a cheeky chappy. You know, he's if anyone else had got that fall, I'm telling you, they wouldn't have survived. But that fella's got something in him that there's no back down in him. There's no give up. So, you know, he still can't speak. I think the boys have figured out in race, Wesley will whistle if he's coming, or if he's under pressure, he'll let it whistle, and they all know it's Wesley. So that's amazing enough, you know, that you're doing 40 miles an hour in a tight bunch, and you'll hear Wesley whistling, so you look after him, you know, or he's coming at you. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? A young fella that's come from not your traditional background, you know, he's had a tough old go of it, but yeah, he's gonna be in our jockey ranks for a long, long time, because he's only ever wanted to be a jockey, and that's what he will be, you know.
Yeah, I love the Wesley story. Like, he's from a tough part of Limerick. There's no getting away from it. I think his mother was telling me he's riding horses basically from the age of 3. And I'm a firm believer as well. Like, Joe Canning was pucking a ball left and right off the wall, playing with his brothers from the age of 3. Like, I'm actually, the more I get older, I think an awful lot of these really good sports people, it's because of practice from an early age. And Wesley was on horses from such an early age. But like that Galway incident, like imagine if it had been worse. Like, imagine the devastation of that. And like when he came back, and he's, as Paddy says, he kind of whispers. You can hear him, but it's hard at times to overcome what he's come through. But as Paddy says, he's a brilliant attitude. He's always smiling. He's always in great form. And if you look at the totally different profiles of the top 3, Robert Huerte's on 22 in the middle. Like, Robert's been an apprentice for a long time, so he's developed it. Like, he's gone the long road, and has basically probably gotten a lot of experience and improved gradually with time and opportunities. Wayne Hassett is very well regarded. He's on 23, and Wesley's on 21, and then you have Sam Coe and Nicola Burns on 18 back in joint 4th. So it's a really, really interesting race, and I love to see these kids coming up. Jack Cleary is in 7th as well. So it's an interesting race as well, because I imagine with a lot of these lads, their agent is really trying to preserve their claim as well, because you don't want to just blow your load straight away and have everything done. But this is a cracking race.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Go on, Paddy.
I was just going to give a mention to Michael Mulvaney as well. He's done a great job with Wesley, you know, because Wesley will tell you himself, when he was around Kildare and he was finished in the school with us, that he was still wild, you know, and a town like Kildare can lead to, you know, silly things. We all know what it can lead to. And Michael Mulvaney really took him under his wing, and, you know, he's made the kid's future basically, and fair play to him, because it's a lot easier just to send someone out the gate and let someone else deal with him, you know.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, and it'll be interesting watching the next few weeks into 2nd of November at the end of the flat. So yeah, it'll be great to see Wesley, and like just talking about his attitude, like even just the determination to even get back up on a horse after his fall was unbelievable. To get back to the level he's riding at, I think everyone
we took him. He was recovering, say, and Jennifer Pugh mightn't be too happy with me now, but he came and lived in the school and didn't speak to anyone or let anyone know. But I used to have him on a an old hack of a horse there. He wasn't supposed to be leaving the ground at all. He just wanted to get on it. And I just let him go and walk on them, that sort of way, because that's all he wants to do. And if you didn't do that for him, where would his mind go, and what would he get into? So he used to just come pop down to us there in the morning, jump up on an old hack, walk around, and it just made him happy. So you can, fair play to him.
Yeah, unbelievable determination, I suppose, and everyone would love to see him do it and continue his upward trajectory, I suppose. But lads, we'll wrap it up there. We've gone through plenty. I think I'll just ask you for a horse to follow now before we end the show. Johnny, I'll go to you first if you have one.
Yeah, plenty to choose from over the last few days. I should mention just Colin Keane in that battle for the title. I thought his ride on Further Shin was poetry in motion as well. I thought that was a brilliant ride. Probably slightly unoriginal connect. I was in Clarny on Monday, but it probably wasn't the greatest fare. I actually thought Light as Air was brilliant. Like, he's a 3-year-old. 3-year-olds had a terrible record in that handicap as well. That Colin White sponsored handicap. In the list I had, I couldn't find a 3-year-old winner going back to the odd last 10 years. And for him to just run all over them, really, including a well-fancied stablemate from Gate 21, could be a Gold Cup horse in the future. Why not? He's already not a million miles off coming into the bracket of being a proper stayer. Just interesting to say with Mutton Bassett, the absolute variety of the horse he's getting is extraordinary for me.
Brilliant. Yeah, Paddy, anything for you?
I thought Gordon Elliott's horses in Chepstow winning the Novice Chase was quite good. Speculatrix, if I'm saying that right. Smash and Ride by Young Bowen, and he's a great rider. A really positive rider. But looked like nice ground, and if the winter isn't too heavy, if we have a good enough winter, he could be a horse that could be starting to climb the ranks.
Very good. Yeah, Gordon Elliott Chasers. Geez, you know how late in the year we're getting now. Only a couple of weeks to Down Royal as well, which would be for the first big one, I suppose, of the jump season. I'm going to stick on the flat. I thought the Camelot Colt, who won the Zetland for Aidan O'Brien on Saturday, was impressive. Pierre Bernard, he's a Camelot horse. Yeah, he was a Camelot horse. I thought he stepped up an awful lot, and on his debut, not his debut, on his maiden win in Dundalk. That was his second start. I just thought the way Christophe Soumillon spoke about him after the race as well. Like, I mean, the race was impressive enough. He won with any amount in hand. It was slowly run as well, and you'd imagine, like, on pedigree, any extended trip or at a faster pace would have suited him even more. But showed a huge turn of foot, a really good temperament, settled throughout the race, and just maybe watch back Christophe Soumillon's interview after the race. He was extremely complimentary about him. Said he could be a Derby horse for next year. So he's definitely one to put in the notebooks if you might have missed that over the weekend. But thanks, lads, for your contributions. We'll be back again next week. If you enjoy the show, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel.